All right, so we're in December of 2022, last month of 2022.
And I can't believe how quickly time flies. I know people say that a lot, but it just happens because Thanksgiving was here and then it's gone. It's one of those things, you're anticipating it, you're looking forward to it, and before you know it, it's gone, and you're like, it's crazy. And we had a crazy year in real estate.
It's been a very crazy few years in real estate for all different reasons. So
let's call it the last year and a half was something that we experienced in real estate that we don't often see in a lifetime.
Yep.
But, we saw it happen a couple times in our lifetime of kind of the rampant siege that everyone went after trying to buy property and sell property at all-time historical highs, which is crazy. And I know today we're going to talk about some of these numbers and kind of see how they compare to this time last year and just kind of a history of what's happened in our marketplace.
Yeah. So, we went from one listing and 40 offers on one listing to sort of, believe it or not, a balanced market, but a slow market. Mm-hmm. So, that's keeping it real. It is slower than it's been historically. So I guess we should get right into the numbers then, right?
Yeah, numbers don't lie. So let's take a look and see what our past tells us, and let's see where we're currently at today.
Sure. So let's go ahead. We're going to talk about units sold. And what we did is we did Orange County, Osceola County, and Polk County, which is our three main counties that we work at. And what I did is I looked at the historic sales for November. So I started in 2018. In 2018, there was 2,877 units sold.
Okay.
In 2019, we had 2,958 units sold. So this is like a normal, everything was going along pretty normally at this particular point. But then we had that, shutdown happen, and everything shut down in 2020. But believe it or not, 2020, 3,482. So we actually had a significant increase. And then in 2021, we saw 3,692. And that could go compared to the normal markets, 2,958 to 3,692. So obviously we saw a huge increase in units sold. Now, come to November of 2022, this is where the story is, 2,173. So pretty significant decrease over what we saw in 2018, 2019, and 2017. Also, I have that number too, is 2,785. So it's still even significantly less than what we sold in 2017.
Okay, so on average, if we're tracking it back from this time last 2017, is what we tracked it back to. What would you say were the average units closed on average?
Looking at how we had an increase 2017, 2018 to 2019, I would say we should be around 3,100 units sold. If we kept on going,
healthy market is 33,000.
3,100 would be what I would say would be a healthy market as far as sustaining the amount of realtors that we have would probably be your number one thing.
And just being realistic as far as what should be moving versus, astronomical highs or lows.
Yeah.
So during that 2-year period where you say we noticed significant increase, how much did it jump up over the average for inventory units sold?
Like as far as
so it went from
3,000
to 3,100 closed units a month on average. And then when we
went up to about 3,700.
Right, so we had a 700 or 600 to 700 unit jump
to what we should be at.
Correct. And everybody kind of got used to that too. They were just like, wow, there's a lot of people buying, a lot of units are closing, and a lot of people got used to, falling into a real estate transaction.
Yeah. It was difficult if you had a buyer at that particular point in time. I know agents that had buyers were very frustrated because there were so much competition with buyers. But if you're a listing agent during this time, it was just pretty much free money.
Yes.
Right? The thing is that we also saw an increase in realtors in the area from 16,000 to about 24,000, which was okay when we were going from 2,700 units sold to 3,700 units sold, but now we're down to 2,100 units sold. So there is a little bit of a disconnect there between units sold and the amount of realtors in the market.
Definitely more competition now with fewer units sold. Yep. So that means that there's less food on the table. So you're going to notice a lot of the people that did get into the business thinking that they might jump on this gravy train. Now they're thinking, wait a second, things just got tougher. Not as many transactions are happening. Not as many, buyers are buying.
Yep.
You know what? Forget about this real estate thing. I gave it a shot for about a year and a half. Now I'm ready to go back into the regular job sector because I don't know if I can stand what's happening now.
And we don't want our agents going back to the regular job sector. We rather come talk to us, see what we can do to help your business. As far as what I'm doing is I sort of, hey, this is a great time to do some content creation and get some content out there so that when the market does return to normal, I'm sitting in a really, really good spot.
Yeah, because you're putting in the work now. While
Yep.
things are slow, you're putting in all the hard work. So by the time things start to flow again, you're prepared for it.
Yeah, exactly. So median home prices, I thought that was interesting because everyone's going to say, hey, this is like 2008. And we just did a video on this that we'll post later about how this is different than 2008. They're saying that these prices are going to fall and, the sort of the sky's falling sort of thing.
Everybody's waiting for a bubble. So
Yeah.
let's look at the numbers and see how our prices are comparing to our history of average median home sales.
So this was interesting. A median home price, half the homes selling for less, half the homes selling for more. This is not average. 2018, 241, 2019, 252, 2020, 290, 2021, 344, a $54,000 jump
on the median
from
price.
2020 to 2021. But guess what? What do you think? Not well, you already know, but 2022.
Well, go ahead.
385,000. It's gone up.
So we've actually noticed a price increase.
Yeah.
A gradual price increase. Where usually when people talk about the bubble or what happened back in 2008, 2009, well, the prices went drastically. The home inventory, the median home price drastically went down because there was too many homes that were available in the market, which brought the prices down because there was too much inventory. But now in this case, you're saying that prices
are going up. But that's what goes back to our video is that we're seeing inflation right now. We're not seeing a whole bunch of foreclosures and short sales. And literally, I purchased a house in 2018. I'm not going to sell that house. I can literally buy another house right now, move into maybe a little bit of a nicer house. But the difference in the payment because of the interest rates are so high, and it just doesn't make sense because I got a 3.5%. So I don't think we're going to see foreclosures and a whole bunch of inventory come.
Yeah. So what's happening is we have a lot of homeowners who purchased homes. They either refinance into an incredibly low interest rate or they bought when interest rates were low. Now they have a choice. Do I want to sell my house and get rid of my incredibly low payment?
Yep.
Which most people are saying, no, I'm going to stay put. Even though they might want a different house or whatever, I think it's safer to stay put because I can afford this incredibly low mortgage. Yeah. And we have a lot of buyers who want to get into the market, but they can't find properties to purchase because a lot of people are staying put. Sellers are staying put. So people who do put their house on the market right now and well into the next 3 to 6 months, these are sellers who have to move. They have to sell a property. They have to relocate for work. There could be a million reasons why people have to move, and that's why they put their house on the market. And then these buyers who are wanting to buy or are smart enough to buy right now, they could come in and get some favorable options as far as what they're looking for.
So it'd be different. Like if I was having this, I'd probably even just rent right now, just because I could make money on renting, and the mortgage I have on my home is so low. But
so you would rent out your house.
I rent out my house because I have such a great rate. I wouldn't want to lose that. So I mean, you got to think of what's a homeowner going to do. I know me as a homeowner, I probably want to keep that 3.5% interest rate and rent out. Others may have to sell because you may have to sell to actually afford to buy a new home. But talking about interest rates, that's probably the biggest factor here is the interest rates. And in mid-November, they were 7.23% when we're looking at it. Went down by mid-November, end of November, 6.8%, and now it's at 6.67.
Yeah,
so we're seeing a little bit of a trickle down. And
correct. We just noticed a recent decline. So by the time you're watching this, interest rates will still be at the 6 point. What did you say it was the next?
Right now it's 6.67.
6.67 is what it is now. So by the time you're watching this, which we'll put this up in the next day or so, it should still be hovering around there. We don't know if it's going to fluctuate up or down, but a lot of lenders are calling their customers today and saying, hey, let's lock in your rate. Let's lock in your rate.
Yeah, and really historically, 6.67 is a great rate. I know compared to 3.5, 4%, 5%, this seems like a very, very high rate, but my first house was over 7%, and that was an amazing rate at that time.
Yeah, and then what I would be doing if I were our agents is going out there, letting people know when it is okay to purchase, what kind of good deals there are out there to be had, and how their agents' negotiating skills can get the buyer more than they would have been able to get a year and a half ago when everybody and their mom was looking to purchase a property. there were no incentives being offered.
Yep.
Sellers were providing zero, nada. So today, if you're an agent, you want to say, hey, here's what I've been able to do for my previous customers, and here's what I could do for you today as far as getting you these best deals or negotiating the best deals possible.
Yep. And here's the good thing too. If you have a customer and they say, I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down, easy overcoming objection on that. Well, you can refinance. I mean, literally the interest rates are 6.67%. If they go down to 4% 2 years from now, they can refinance. But at least they have a home and they're paying on a home that they're building equity on.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and then here's what I'm thinking: if at all possible, we do see more homes come onto the market for sale, it's probably some of these institutional buyers who came in and purchased a lot of properties at or above market value, and now they're having to dump their portfolios. So they might come out and say, yes, we have 1,500 homes just in this area or county, and we're being told we have to sell them all because we have to liquidate some of our assets and bring more cash into our reserves. So that's my only concern, is that maybe some of these institutional buyers will flood the market with all of their inventory.
More supply. So that is a possibility. And talking about that, Open Door, OfferPad, Redfin, all these online brokerages, they're struggling right now. They're in the news. You can Google and see they're in the news. I think one of them's
I think it's OfferPad. They just got delisted from the New York Stock Exchange.
New York Stock. I think their stock went from
$6,
$5 or $6 a share down to 66 cents today. And then Open Door is not doing too much better. They were around $34 at one point. They're $1.41 today.
Yeah.
So they're really struggling, and it makes sense.
And we were just talking about this earlier, just before we came in here. But yes, OfferPad, Open Door, great concept in the right market. Because, you have a seller that's kind of up against the wall. They need to move. They can't wait for buyers. They can't do showings. They just need to say, hey, listen, I want to pick my closing date and my price and just make it as easy as possible for me. Yep. Now, if Open Door, OfferPad were in today's market, helping out frustrated sellers who have to sell, and we're giving them offers and negotiating on the price, this would be a market for them to thrive in. Yep. Unfortunately, they started thriving in a market 3 years ago where all prices were going up, and inventory was low. So everyday homeowners, like say me and my wife wanted to buy a house, we couldn't because we just got outbid by OfferPad. And we're like, wait, we just offered you $10,000 more than your list price. They're like, yeah, OfferPad offered us more than that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wait, how could they afford to buy so many houses and overpay above market value and then turn around, sell it for more than they bought it for, and pay commissions and closing costs on top of that?
You know how they can afford that?
Tell me.
Bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of they couldn't pretty much. Yeah,
and a lot of investors put a lot of money into the concept because, like I said, the concept is good.
Yeah,
right?
But it's when it's on a down market. They should be buying on a down. They bought on an up market. They did the exact opposite of what they should have done.
The thing is, Zillow, which I don't give them a lot of compliments, but I'll do one now. They were actually smart to realize, hey, you know what? We dipped our toe into the iBuying market, and we're losing our hat on this. We're not going to do it anymore, and they pulled out. I think like 6 months into it, they were like, this is not a good business model. We're pulling out. And they pulled out at a good time. Otherwise, they'd be in hot water right now with all of their shareholders.
It still hurt them, but at least they were able to survive, where I'm not too sure some of these other companies are going to survive. I remember in my neighborhood, there was a house, or a neighborhood close to mine, where I thought the value was around $400,000, and they had this house for $450,000. I'm like, what's going on? And I noticed, I think it was OfferPad had it for sale, and I'm like, how are they going to get? And I looked at what they bought it for, and they bought it for like $410,000 or $420,000. I'm like, how are they buying this for over market value? What others are selling for? It made no sense to me, and now we sort of find out why it doesn't make sense. They're struggling financially. Investors are losing a lot of money, unfortunately.
Yeah. So my concern is, I hope they don't take all of their inventory and dump it into the market and flood the market, because then we will experience some pain. If they did something like that. On top of that, I just heard
it'd be a good time to buy. If they do that, I'm buying.
Yes.
So
I just read an article the other day that J.P. Morgan, they're pumping $1 billion into the economy by purchasing properties to strictly turn over and rent out. So their strategy is, you know what? Let's buy a ton of homes, and then we're just going to become the biggest landlord in the nation by just renting out these houses to families who want a house to rent, pay us, and then we just are essentially landlords. So instead of buying an apartment building with 600 units. They're just buying a bunch of houses and renting it out, and they're going to make money and cash flow that way.
Interesting concept. I would think an apartment would probably do better ROI, but that's just me. Interesting. So talking about mortgage rates, we talked about it. There was a meme going around that some of you may have seen where it compared if you bought a house and then the drop in price, but the calculation.
We'll flash it on the screen. You guys can see here. See how the screen is? It's a blue screen, and on the left is what homes cost, what somebody was willing to pay for a house a year ago, and then what they're willing to pay for it. On the right, you'll see what they were willing to pay for it now. And then they did a cost comparison. And essentially they're saying, hey, listen, it's actually cheaper to buy a house now than it was a year ago.
And it was absolutely wrong. It probably could have been right with certain things, but they didn't have any disclaimers on the bottom. They didn't have anything of, hey, we added the insurance and the taxes and we had that at a higher rate. And
or
they
how
didn't
much
have
down payment
APR.
Or
so it was a really bad thing that people were sharing. And I would caution anyone to share things like that, especially mortgage financial information, because someone might call you and go, I want this deal. But one of the best tools you can have if you don't already have, especially in this market when interest rates is such a thing, is an app called Carl's Mortgage Calculator, or any sort of mortgage calculator.
Any type of mortgage calculator that gives more advanced readings rather than you just putting in the purchase price, the down payment, and interest rate, and it's spitting out a number. An advanced mortgage calculator asks you to put in more data fields like taxes,
and insurance, and stuff
HOA,
like that,
all those fees.
So in the Carl's Mortgage, it's Carl with a K. Just so if anyone's looking it up, it's a good one. That tool I've been using for a while. And just be careful when you see memes online that you double check the math on it before you share it, because the last thing we want to do is have bad information out there being shared.
Yep. And if you guys share information on the valuation of a property, it's okay to do so, but just make sure you cite where you're getting all of your data from. So I like to say, hey guys, this is an estimated monthly mortgage payment of X, but just say all my information was from, rocketmortgage.com based on a 680 credit score, 10% down payment, so on and so forth. That way the consumer realizes, how you came up with those numbers and where you got the data. That way we're not providing them those numbers.
Or reach out to our partners that are in the mortgage business here that are, in the downtown office quite a bit. I saw them even at the Metro West. Or if you have your own lender that you use, of course, you can talk to your lender. But our guys here would be more than happy to give out some quotes that you can use and do it properly, following all the rules that we have. So builders are still struggling. So they were probably the biggest, I guess the buyers of these homes are the biggest victims on this. We've seen some victims of this interest rate hike, and I would say the number one victim would be buyers of new construction.
Yeah, because a lot of people who bought a home, they would either put a contract and buy and close on it 30 or 45 days later. A lot of these buyers, when they signed a contract with a new home builder and gave them a $40,000, $50,000 deposit, that's when they signed the contract. Interest rates were 3%.
3.5%. Yeah.
And then what happened was a year later, the builder calls the buyer and says, hey, we're ready to close. Are you ready to close and fund this thing? And then they're like, well, we don't qualify anymore because our interest rates aren't 3% anymore. When we agreed to buy the house, they're now 7%. How do we afford to buy this house? And the builder says to them,
sorry, too bad. We're keeping your deposit.
Yeah, and
some of them are saying that. Some of them are allowing them to go to a smaller house.
Different community that they're building.
Some of them are understanding more so, but some of them are taking the deposits, and some of the deposits are big, $40,000, $50,000 deposits, and taking them.
It sucks, and it's not fair, but
it's
just the luck of the draw.
Unfortunately, is the new home contracts are very biased to the new home builders. And we have to keep that in mind. Now, the thing about it is now they have a whole bunch of inventory that they need to sell. So
and they have a lot of great incentives, too.
They're giving out incentives. We talked last month about D.R. Horton had some incentives to lower the interest rates to 5.5% and 5.75%. I just saw MI Homes. They're offering a 4.875% interest rate. So if anyone's interested in MI Homes or the information on that, let me know. And get you in touch with, or just contact your local MI rep.
So what MI Homes are doing is they're actually locking in the rate on their new construction homes at the 4.875. Yeah. So any buyer that goes to buy from them, they know that they're going to get a locked in rate at 4.875, which is genius. Yep. And the builders, for them to do that and lock in the rate means that they're willing to make a voluntary upfront contribution to making sure that that home is affordable for that buyer upfront. And what I notice a lot about builders doing right now too is they're continuing to build homes on spec. So that way, if a buyer's interested, they could say, sign the contract, we close in 30 days.
Well, they have a lot of inventory too now to
yeah,
sell.
for sure.
So, yeah.
So now they have a lot of inventory from people who pulled out of contracts, or they're just continue to build on spec so they could close right away and not have to wait a 9-month or 10-month build.
I think it was between a 30 and a 40% cancellation rate over the last couple of months for builders, which is extremely high cancellation rate.
Yeah, and then I think for the state of Florida, I think Florida was, in general, I think they were at 20% overall cancellation rate on all purchase contracts. Yep. Now, a lot of those people...
That includes resales.
That includes resales.
Yep.
Now, a lot of those people will probably be kicking themselves later, thinking, you know what, why didn't we just buy the house and just go through it with it anyway? Why did we cancel and leave our deposit on the table? Just like all those people who did cancel during COVID. When COVID first came around, a lot of people canceled. Mm-hmm. And then 3 months later, they're like, oh, we should have kept the house because we had such a great deal on it. And, but people were afraid. They didn't know what to expect, so they just did what they thought was right at the time. So,
yeah. Well, we're seeing super high inflation, and that typically means prices are going up. And if it doesn't slow down, I don't see house prices going down. I mean, everything's more expensive. You go to a restaurant right now, and, 2 people at a decent restaurant, you're looking at $50-$60 easily for 2 people to eat out.
And the thing is, with inflation, I figured I'd see less people shopping, less people going out to dinner. It's crazier. It's busier than ever. I went somewhere and it was completely packed. And I'm like, wait, how are there so many people still spending so much money right now? And that's why the Fed keeps increasing.
They want to slow down spending.
They want to slow down spending. I'm like, oh man, if I see this much action happening right now, I mean, that means that the Fed's going to continue to increase the rate, which we hope doesn't happen for our sake and what we'll be doing in our business.
We do want to slow down a little, and it's slowed down. Obviously, is 2,173 units sold. That is a slowdown. But the prices are still rising. That shows you how serious inflation has been in the last year or two.
Exactly. So any other updates?
Yeah, we have our Christmas party coming up.
That's right. So our holiday party is going to be January 5th. We're sending out a save the date, and we will be sending out invitations with more details. But I wanted you guys all to save the date for January 5th in the evening. In downtown Orlando is the location.
Okay.
So we'll be sending you guys out more details, what's going on, when it's happening, all that. We look forward to see everybody there, and we'll have a good time.
Yep. One other piece of news probably is that we are seeing a little bit increase in scams going on with land deals.
Yeah. So what we did is we right now, real estate is a weird time, and right now, as the sales start to decrease, there are a lot of agents that are willing to, they're more willing to take on a transaction, and even if they're skeptical about it, they're like, "Hey, listen, it's good, it sounds good, it smells good, it feels good. Let's go through with it." So I just want you guys to know that if there's an unencumbered property, which means it's a house or land that has no mortgage payoff. That means that they own it free and clear. Just make sure you do your due diligence and talk to your title company and make sure they've done their due diligence to determine that we're dealing with an actual seller.
Yep.
And there's a few ways to go about doing that. One is asking the listing agent. Listing agent, have you personally met?
Well, sometimes it's the listing agent. This is a listing agent that's getting scammed.
Listing agent gets scammed, but then the buyers get caught up in it as well.
Yep.
But yeah, so,
have you personally seen the person that's selling it?
So if you're the listing agent, be super cautious. If you're the buyer's agent, also ask questions. So say, hey, my buyer wants to buy this house. I understand there's no mortgage payoff on this, so I just need to determine, listing agent, have you physically met with the seller? Have you seen them? Have you looked them in the eye? And usually the first warning sign is, no, we did everything virtually. They signed virtually, and I talked to them only on the phone. And usually they can't talk on the normal hours. They're always talking late at night. And it's probably because they're in a different time zone or somewhere else in the world. Yep. They're probably in China or Africa or somewhere or something like that. But be careful of these scams. Usually, remember, it's unencumbered property with no mortgage. It's listing agents who have listed a property totally virtual and they've never met with the owner. And then what happens now, what I've noticed where our title company, Land Trust Title, what they're doing now is anytime that they get a listing without a mortgage, what they're doing is they're sending a certified letter directly to the owner tax rolls. So if you go into tax rolls, you see where the tax mailing address is, and that's where the owner of that property physically lives. So what they're doing, what our title company is doing, is they're sending a certified letter directly to that owner saying, hey, we just want to let you know there's a contract to purchase your house at this address. If this is you, great. If it's not you, please call this number with this verified PIN. And then what they do is they call the number, they put in the PIN and say, hey, I'm the owner. I received this letter. I'm not selling my property. This is a fraudulent situation. And also, what I want you guys to know of, if you own any properties, there's this, Orange County has this website where you can register your properties, that if anything happens with the deed or title, you'll be receiving text and phone call notification to make you aware that something's happening with the deed or title to your property, which is pretty cool. And I think maybe if we could I'll post a link for it where you guys can register for it, or if you have any investors, they can register for it if they're buying these properties free and clear cash.
It is very sophisticated, including notaries being involved in Vietnam and stuff like that.
Fake notaries.
Look legit.
They say they can't go to a consul. They say they can't go to see a consulate usually they have to go to embassy to get these documents notarized. And for whatever reason, they can't go there. So, if they start to come up with reasons they can't,
just be cautious. Just be, if you're aware of it, the chances of it happening to you are much, much lower. So if you're aware of, mortgage-free residential or land, and you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, just make sure you double check and check with the title company and make sure everything's legit.
Yep.
Yeah. So protect your buyers. So.
Absolutely. And next time we do this, we will have a sponsored segment where we bring in somebody who has a little segment where they give information about their industry as it pertains to you guys watching. And we'll also have a live audience next time.
Audience, yes.
So we'll
January 3rd
January
is
3rd.
good to be. We'll put it on the calendar for January 3rd, so right after New Year's.
And if you guys like to participate and come on in here, it's great because we can have more of a lively discussion and involve some of the people that do come here to participate.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.
That's all we got.
Great. So we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully you got some information here that you can bring forward into your business. Take care.